Now the object of this tutorial is to talk about circular text. That gets wrapped up around a circle or some other kind of shape, because when you look at these labels here, you will see that actually there are a lot of examples where people have done that, like here for example, or here or here. But this isn't the only one, there's lots and lots of them. So this here for example, here and here, and everywhere really. But then it isn't only circles, it's also all kinds of other things that get text wrapped around them, all kinds of other shapes. So here's another one where we have it wrapped around a circle. So this is something that is quite commonly used, and there's a reason for that, and the reason is that the circle and the text that gets put inside the circle creates a self-contained area which kind of serves the same purpose that the boxes do. So when you put things inside circles, wrap text inside a circle, then you get a self-contained area where there's an inside and an outside. And since we have a lot of material in a label that needs to get hierarchized, this is a technique or a strategy that a lot of designers use when they are putting together labels. So I thought that it would be a good idea to show you how to do that, how to think about that. And I'm just going to go through the history here, which is what I always do, and it will also show you how I also made a lot of bad decisions along the way until I ended up with this, which I quite like, and I will explain to you the kinds of things that I did here. And so let's get started. Okay, so if I go back to the beginning, then we have this here, where I have this gray background. I have a vector illustration which I found on Freepik and which I really liked. I still like it, but it wasn't working, as I realized afterwards. And then I have a circle, a circular band, and I have the word doğal, 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 natural, 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 natural written all around it. And actually this is obviously not the very, very beginning, but I closed this document at a certain point and then opened it again, and the point where I opened it, it was looking like this. So the first thing that I did was I said to myself, this doğal, doğal, doğal isn't really working. It's too skinny, it's too repetitive, so let me think of something else. And what happened is that one of my neighbors actually had some honey sent to her from her home, which is in Hakkari, and she gave me some, and it's absolutely delicious. And I said, hey, Hakkari kestane balı, why not? Hakkari chestnut honey. So I made the circle, well, the band of the circle wider, and then I put Hakkari here and kestane balı here. So instead of going in one direction, all of the text, now some of it is going in this direction, and then on the bottom it's going in that direction, and I will show you how to do all of that in just a second. Then I made it bigger. Then I made the illustration bigger because something wasn't working. I mean, I could tell something wasn't working, but I was trying to figure out what. Made the text lighter, didn't work either. Back to normal. Increased the kerning up here, and then I added these two circles, because these are dots rather. These are things that people do a lot with labels, because the text alone is usually not enough to complete the circle, to create a visual complete thing. So you kind of tend to put little objects like circles or maybe even little icons and things like that on two sides. So I tried that. Lightened up the background image, went back to the doğal doğal actually, then came back here. Then I had the idea that maybe I should put the illustration in the front and then this thing in the back. So let's continue. Lots of other bad decisions. nothing was working, and then I had this idea, hey, why don't I get rid of the gray background? So that was my first good idea, because obviously seeing the honey itself is much more effective than seeing this stupid gray background. But then I again changed my mind, let's skip. Then I said to myself, well, the reason why I went back was because when I didn't have this area here, then things, I thought to myself, are things flying a bit? Are they kind of like becoming a little bit unanchored, you know? That is why I went back to the gray thing. Then I said to myself, okay, why don't I just put a stroke around it? Why don't I just make it transparent? But then that big fast white stroke obviously wasn't doing much. So then I said, how about a really thin stroke? But then the next thing that I thought about was, how about, let's see, oh, okay, sorry, this actually happened before. Now here the circle is still a band, as you can see. Then at some point I completed the circle. I decided to get rid of the band and just have a full circle, because I thought to myself, maybe the illustration will look better in that way. Then made the circle a bit bigger, closed the background. Now we're back to the stroke. Moved the logo up a bit here. As you can see, it's here. Moved it up a bit. Decrease the opacity of the circle. But then I said, hey, wait a minute, I'm actually going to make the logo transparent. Now there's something I need to go into with the logo, so let's just zoom in here. Now if you remember, the Tekireferdi logo that I had this black long thing, and I decided to crop that when it came to the packaging things, some of them at least anyway. And can I do that? Yes, I can. I can make logo alternatives, as you know, as I have already told you. What I would need to do, however, is I would need to specify that in the branding manual, that you can use the logo type like this as well. Can I get rid of the green area? Yes, of course I can. And I don't even need to have this. However, I thought that it would be good to have this as a kind of like an anchoring element. Then I brought the stroke back, so let me just zoom out again, and it is at that point that I started to realize that this beautiful honey illustration, and it is really nice, is not really working. It's not what I want. It's not what I'm looking for. So went to the noun project and got me some bees. I have three different kinds. They are right here. This is the one that I ended up liking the most, but I'm going to hold on to the other three, because what I'm actually thinking about is making some alternatives as part of this tutorial again. So close the thing and then put in the first of the bees, which in this case isn't working, but there's another alternative that I'm thinking about where I think it will work very well. Close those little circles, brought them back, put in a new bee, and then another bee, and then once I had the bee, then this text here, the weight of the text, which is a bold, became way too much. So the reason why I had it like that was because, okay, let me just come here, because this illustration is quite powerful, it's quite strong, and if I put light text next to this illustration, then this text will disappear completely. And in fact, I had already tried that previously, and it wasn't working. So that is why the text was as bold as it was. But once I had this elegant little B here, then I no longer had a need for such a bold text, so I made the text much, much lighter. This is now a light. And this is Barlow. In the tutorial about systems, I talked about this, about fonts and the consistency of fonts in systems when it comes to putting together things like packages and bags and all kinds of things, labels and stuff like that. So let's see. Oops, I kind of like accidentally put the white background back there. Then what happened is, now I have other words that I need to use. So in the packaging thing, the subcategory I'm going to call Enfes, delicious, right? So I put Enfes here, change its location, move this up, and then I also have this since 1894, which I also had on the donkey milk package. And on the donkey milk package I had Itriat, which means beauty products in Old Turkish. So I have this. I need to have this here as well for consistency. But then I moved it up here and just played around with it. And I need to have the grammage, the weight, 500 milliliters. And then I decided to make the 1894 part a little bit smaller because it reads more correctly. You know, it's delicious since 1894, or 1890'dan beri enfes, you know. And then I moved this back down, and this is what I ended up with. Now what I am going to do now is I'm going to show you how to wrap text around a circle, which could also be any other kind of path in Photoshop, and then I'm going to make one or two alternatives to this, and that'll be the end of this tutorial. So now let's look at how to create circular text in Photoshop, or text that gets put around a path. Now the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just put guides right in the middle of this document. Now when you're on the background, then it'll just snap to the center, and I want to have a good centering. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down the Shift key and draw a path. So I don't, let's see, I'm going to make the stroke black and the fill transparent, and I'm going to change that later because it's going to be easier for me to work in that way, and I'm going to make the stroke much, much thinner. I just want to see what I'm doing, you see? 1 pixel should be fine. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the text tool, go to centered. If the text is going to be centered, I'm going to go to centered. And when I put the cursor right up against the path, it kind of starts getting this funny line, so it's automatically put everything around the circle. Now this lorem ipsum text I'm going to delete, and then I'm just going to write whatever. Taze günlük yumurta. Daily fresh eggs. What I can do is I can now modify the text in any way that I want. So, for example, I can I can't do that from here, sorry. Let me just go back here. Oops, you need to be careful that you're selecting everything. I can decrease the font size. I can decrease the kerning, or I can increase it. I don't need to worry about the leading, obviously. So let's bring this back to 100. So now this text will always wrap itself around like that. However, what if we want to have text that also goes in the opposite direction? Now what you do in that situation is you make a new ellipse, just, and you go to the scale tool, hold down Alt and Shift, and just scale this up so that it becomes as big as your, hold on, yeah, now I'm exactly right, so that it goes exactly along the top of your first thing. So now you take your type tool again, put it right here, and it will again put a whole bunch of stuff here. Let's see, this is white, we need to make it black. Now I'm just going to delete that, and I'm going to write mutlu tavuklardan, daily fresh eggs from happy chickens. Now this is on the outside and it's still going in that direction. What you do is you come back to the path tool and you go right on the text, and when you go on the text you will see that you have these two little arrows. Now what you can do is you can move the type now, but what you can also do is you can just move it inside like this, and now they are on the same line and they are following different directions. This one is going in this direction, this one is going in this direction. Okay, now let's talk about something else. So this is the big ellipse. I'm going to make a copy of this, and what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to give it a color. So let's make it pink, and let's make the stroke go away. And now you can just scale this, hold down the Alt key so that you scale from the center, and now your text is sitting inside a circle. However, what happens if you want to make a band like the one that I had in the beginning when I made all those mistakes? Now I'm still on the path tool, the path is still selected. All I do is I copy and paste into the same layer. So I go Control C, Control V, then I go here and go to subtract from shape, and then I go back to press down the Alt key again and scale this down, and voila, now you have your band. I didn't do it perfectly. I would need to make this a little bit bigger, or this a little bit bigger, so that the text is exactly centered, but you get the idea. And it isn't just circles. You can wrap text around anything, any path. So I just want to see if I can find some examples here where people have wrapped text around, oh, let's see, like this here for example. See this here? This has been wrapped around a path. It's not a circle. It's been wrapped around something that is kind of like a wave, like a curl. Or, let's see, anything else? Yep, like this here for example. Again, this has been wrapped around a path. These have been wrapped around very, very soft curvatures. They're not circles. If they were circles, they would have to be huge, huge, huge circles. Obviously, they're not. So, it's not just circles. It's anything that you can think of. I just showed it to you with circles because that's the easiest thing to do, of course. So now I'm just going to make a couple of alternatives to that transparent jar, and then that'll be the end of this circular text tutorial. And here they are, the alternatives that I made. So I made one which is very similar to this one. It's almost the same. This text here is a little bit smaller because there's just more, but it's still following the circle, so there's no problem there. And other than that, everything is pretty much the same, except this icon is different, obviously. But then I also made this one here, which would be like kind of like maybe another line of honey that Tekir Efendi sells. So here I used that funny bee with that speed trajectory coming out of its backside, and I placed that inside a circular text. And the inspiration for that came actually out of some of these labels that I saw that are doing that are using kind of fragmented text. So like this one here, for example, or like this. I quite liked that, and I thought, hey, I want to try something like this as well. This is not the only example. There's others as well. This seems to be something that is fashionable to do, I guess, because I have seen others. I can't seem to see one right now, but trust me, there are others as well. Let's see, maybe further down here. Yeah, like this one here, I think has them as well. Yeah, like this, like so. So anyway, so that was the inspiration for that. And here I put a semi-transparent background on this because it was kind of breaking apart. But then I managed to use the logo in the same way that I've used it before. And in the body lotions, I had a triat written here in exactly the same way. Now this time I have Enfes, which would be the byline or the slogan for well, the byline, not the slogan, for the different categories that the company has. We have the grammage, we have the since 1894, so we have all the elements that we need to have, although the design is different. And basically that's it. These are the alternatives that I made with the circular text strategy. And that's the end of the tutorial, and I'll see you later.